and too fast.
Forward.
Into the darkness.
Welcome to Slash Forward, the channel that provides summarization and commentary of all your favorite popular and obscure horror movies. In this video, we're going to take a look at The Descent, a 2005 film by Neil Marshall, who's best known for basically this movie. Now, he has some good credits, but I'm not sure any of them were more popular than The Descent. But that's okay. I've been thinking about this film ever since I mentioned it in the description of A Quiet Place, and I wanted to verify my claim that this is one of the most atmospheric horror films of the last 15 years. We'll talk about that more at the end. For now, let's check out the movie. We open on Beth, Sarah, and Juno, three ladies of adventure doing some whitewater rafting. Even though one of them takes the ill-advised move of coming off the side of the raft into the bottom, they make it through all smiles and uncrushed cocksies. They're greeted at the end point by Sarah's daughter and husband who, after some rambunctious lady ribbing, shows some extra care and attention to Juno. While cruising through woodland roads on their way back to civilization, Sarah's husband, surely reminiscing upon a prior midnight liaison with Juno, accidentally crosses the center line and promptly takes a stack of copper rods to the face, an accident that unfortunately also kills their daughter. Sarah wakes up in the hospital, and instead of hitting her call buzzer, she immediately begins ripping out all of her life-monitoring medical devices, and gets literally foreshadowed down the hallway where she runs into Beth and learns about the outcome of the wreck. We find out that she's not actually by herself, she's in the middle of a crowded hospital, full of people who don't seem to mind that she's having a breakdown for some reason. And cut to 1 year later, we're provided ample evidence that Beth and Sarah are now in the United States.
It's mud, blood and beer, or sweet Jesus. Great, turn that shite off.
How dare you? They finish their woodland drive at a cabin where Juno has been waiting for them, along with a large crew of rowdy, adventure-seeking ladies. They proceed to do all the things that ladies do when they're demonstrating to an audience that they're having a good time, in service of the character-building portion of the plot. They laugh at what's supposed to be an embarrassing photo, but looks almost exactly like them now.
No!
Oh my gosh, that's bad. Sexy.
Lighthearted insults.
Don't say a fucking word, alright? It was a Christmas present.
What about you, Holly? Got a man?
Oh, I'm sports folk like Juno. What? Rebecca too, I think.
Well, that was crass. The next morning, they take a group photo and head out to what has been described as a tourist attraction spelunking adventure.
Juno, are you sure we're going the right way?
There's only one road, so just follow it. When they arrive, we're given evidence that they're not exactly where Juno said they would be going, which should have been immediately noticed as this area is rugged and secluded and looks nothing like an underground souvenir shop, as was previously described. A little more foreshadowing, some beautiful cinematography, and then another jump scare.
There's only one way out of this chamber, and that's down the pipe.
No, I'm good. Sarah goes off to investigate a noise and is treated to another jump scare. Then they find the next passage, and it looks like this. Sarah gets stuck, and Beth wonders,
What are you so worried about, Sarah?
what do you mean? Do you see what's happening right now? After working their way through, the passage caves in, requiring the group to find another way out. This is where we get official confirmation that they are indeed in an uncharted cave, and that their pre-registered plan with the local park services office is essentially useless. They are completely on their own. They have no choice but to travel deeper into the crevasse in order to come out on the other side. They make it across an opening in a tense sequence that makes my hands and feet sweat. Holly thinks she sees daylight and goes tearing off down the cave, only to promptly fall down a pit. She suffers a simple open compound fracture to the knee. This requires everyone to join her down below rather than continue on at the upper level, so thanks a lot, Holly. Sarah goes off to explore another noise while Holly gets ready to bite the towel in a brutal frontier medicine-style bone-setting scene.
Just fucking break down.
Sarah definitely hears another noise and sees something in the darkness, but she can't convince anyone else that she's not been touched with a case of the cave madness.
There's nothing there.
The group finds themselves in a natural ossuary when they come to meet their first crawler up close. who then quickly climbs off into the darkness. It circles back, jump scaring the group yet again, and then noms on Holly's neck. The group splits off in the confusion, and Sarah takes a fall that knocks her out temporarily. Juno sticks behind to try to save Holly and successfully injures 2 crawlers. Unfortunately, one of them manages to abscond with Holly's body, and Juno is so geared up that she accidentally axes Beth in the neck. Sarah wakes up in a human boneyard just in time to have Holly's body dropped in front of her, giving her a front row seat to a feeding. Luckily, the crawlers, being adapted to cave life, have poor vision, so Sarah just has to wait them out as they consume her friend inches away. Once they've cleared the area, she fashions a torch and looks for a way out. Meanwhile, Rebecca, learning something from the earlier parts of the movie, she attempts to create her own jump scare scenario, but fails miserably. This leads to a limp-wristed flail-off with the crawler. At this point, Juno jumps in to take care of business. The ladies talk about the biology of the crawlers, confirming their poor vision, and piece together evidence from their journey so far to conclude that the crawlers must hunt for prey on the surface at night, indicating that there's an alternative exit somewhere in the area. Sarah finds Beth, who is somehow still alive and can somehow still talk. Beth gives Sarah a memento she swiped from Juno and warns Sarah not to trust her. The trinket connects Juno intimately to Sarah's husband, supporting Beth's story about how she got her neck ventilated, and also indicating the aforementioned carnal familiarity of Juno and Sarah's husband. Now fully transmogrified from a delicate piece of porcelain into a primeval hard-ass, Sarah quickly grants Beth a mercy killing, and then begins culling the crawler herd. As the survivors realize they're being surrounded, they decide to make an all-out run for it. At this point, we don't really expect anything to work out as intended. As they make their way across the void, Little Sister's immediately attacked by a crawler. She manages to take it out and then die in an incredibly melodramatic way. Immediately after this, Big Sister is administered the mother of all Zerberts, leaving Juno stuck in the middle with nowhere to go. She ends up taking a dive and luckily finds water. This leads to a reunion of Sarah and Juno for the finale. The final sequence is an all-out, no-holds-barred grudge match where eye-gouging and groin kicks are encouraged, leading to an incredibly gory outcome. After clearing the first wave, Sarah hobbles Juno and leaves her as bait so she can make an escape attempt. She shows no mercy for this homewrecker. Sarah finds a mound of bones that leads to freedom and quickly runs up to it, and she books it out of there back to the car, and after a good cry and a little purge, we get a quick shot of Ghost Juno followed by a twist ending. We see that Sarah is still in the cave, imagining she's celebrating her daughter's birthday while her friends are being slaughtered around her. This original ending was actually deemed too bleak for US audiences, so it was cut for theaters. But it didn't matter because the edgier ending for the foreign audiences was ultimately retconned to allow for a sequel that centers around Sarah returning to the cave. For the extra piece of this video, we're going to have a brief discussion of Neil Marshall's effective use of jump scares to create a sense of overwhelming dread. As I mentioned at the beginning, this film is notable for its intense claustrophobic atmosphere. Similarly to A Quiet Place, it uses periods of quietness and normalcy punctuated by intense action or loud noises to draw the viewer in and help them empathize with the characters. Both movies do this incredibly effectively, but with very different methods. A Quiet Place is more of a story-driven film where the periods of punctuated intensity are connected through strong pacing, a tight plot, and an unfolding familial drama that the audience is fully invested in due to the strength of the character development. Conversely, The Descent has less developed characters and weaker group bonds pulling us in, but makes up for this by interspersing the intense parts with expertly shot sequences of claustrophobia. These characters are not just running through caves, they are descending through narrow channels, submerging themselves through shallow pools of water while carrying gear, climbing over dark voids, and so on. It feels like they could snag on something or get stuck at any moment. There's a constant risk of a slow, aggravating death. The characters do not have to be as developed overall because they are fill-ins for the viewer. Marshall uses the atmosphere to create a fully realized environment within which viewers can place themselves. And in the case of this movie, this is pulled off almost flawlessly. In addition to this technique, it really struck me when I watched the movie this time how effective the jump scares are. Usually jump scares are used as a cheap trick to ramp up the experience of watching an otherwise mediocre to bad movie. They tend to be unnecessary and provide no payoff. I will say that there were many more jump scares in The Descent than I expected, but they don't appear to have any of these flaws. There's one jump scare in particular that I clearly remembered from prior viewings of the movie. I declined to show it in the summary because it's just that good. If you're going to watch the movie and you've never seen it before, you should go into it unprepared. It's the epitome of an effective and useful jump scare. So what about all the others? Well, when I watched the movie this time, that pinnacle jump scare didn't actually have that much of an effect on me because it previously left such a strong impression. The scene is burned into my memory. I knew exactly when it was coming and what to expect of it. I did forget basically every other jump scare in the movie. I was actually surprised at how many there are, in the earlier sequences especially, before any of the actual descending takes place. On their face, these may seem like cheap or unnecessary attempts to spice up the boring plot-building parts of the movie, but I don't think they fall into that category. What I came to realize was that while the primary jump scare didn't actually scare me, I still had a consistent feeling of anxiety throughout the movie. The other jump scares weren't there to make a scary movie out of what otherwise would have been a not-so-scary movie. They were building and creating a sense of dread and connection with the audience, preparing them to have a strong emotional and physical reaction to what they were about to watch, making me feel feelings enhance my connection to what was happening on the screen. As a result, this movie can be viewed as a masterclass in effectively utilizing space to build atmosphere and tension, and in using seemingly innocuous techniques like the occasional jump scare to manipulate the emotional state of the audience, priming them to feel strongly about future events within the movie and providing them with a more interactive viewing experience. I guess. Either way, thank you for watching.